Hello and welcome back to Wireman's Whimsy. Today I want to talk about the butterflies and flowers masks that are available. They are beautiful, and I just wanted to give you some tips and tricks on how to use them. So what we've got on the butterfly side, we have these butterflies. And you can absolutely use these as the stencils and masks to build your projects. What I find though with these is when I use them, I tend to end up with little bits of shadow coming through as I use my blending brushes. Sometimes I go off into the other stencil. So I'd like to spend some time today going through how I manage the ink on my masks. So we'll go ahead and get started. I've done some of the pre-work for the greeting already. It's come from the Special Moments set. And I've got a 5 1/4 by 4 in the Blushing Bride as a matte, and then I've got a piece of 5 by 3 3/4 in the white. So I'm just going to move everything off to the side because this does take a little bit of space to show you how I do it. So I know on this one, I put the butterfly down just a little bit too low. So on this one, I'm going to want the butterfly just that little bit higher. But as you can see my card underneath, or my card front underneath. I've got lots of this white space that could potentially become inked. So what I do is I create masks that go underneath the stencils. This is just all scrap paper. Like when I've used up this grid paper, I cut it up into smaller pieces so that I can use it for different things. So I'm just going to lay this over like this, and I'm just using washi tape. I got the washi tape probably somewhere like the dollar store or something like that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm covering up anywhere that could potentially have a little bit of that ink come through. And I need to drop this down just a little bit more, like that. There we go. And I should be good here with this butterfly underneath. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down on my card front where I would like it to be. And I'm just going to angle it just a little bit. I am towards the top. And then I'm going to take some more washi tape and I'm just going to fix it down, because the last thing you want is your stencil to move while you're in the middle of using it. So I am also going to just touch this corner down because that's my actual card underneath. So what I can do now is I can take my Blushing Bride and I can ink up my brush and I can just start coming in and bringing that color in. And you can color as heavily or as lightly as you want. You can leave a little bit of color variation, a bit of gradation in there if you want, because it just kind of adds to the overall effect. Butterflies aren't all one color, flowers aren't all one color. So a little bit of gradation in the color is not a big deal. Now, you'll notice on this one that I came in with a little bit of basic gray just around the edges. And what I realized was I kind of wanted the antenna to be that color as well. So I'm actually going to just take a couple of pieces of paper and just kind of manually mask off the antenna, just like that. And then I'm going to come in with some basic gray at this point and just brush a little bit on. Now the basic gray is quite juicy. So once I've got this down where I know I want them to be, I'm just going to brush that off a little bit and just come in and add that little bit of gray to the top there. Okay, let's put all that off to the side. Now the other thing with this is you've just applied a whole bunch of color to your stencil, and you don't actually want that color to transfer to your fingers and then you end up transferring it onto your card, which you don't want to do. So I just usually take a tissue and just give it a little bit of a wipe. So I'm just going to peel all this up now, And then we can do the second stencil. It's almost like two-step stamping. And we can do the detail on the butterfly. So these ones just take just that little bit of time, but it is so worth it to take that time, because that way when you use the washi tape, the stencil doesn't move. Okay, so there is our first layer of the butterfly. I'm just going to peel the stencil off the back of the, or peel the mask off the back of the stencil. Okay. And the stencils have two sides. One is shiny and one is more matte. And I use the shiny one as my top, so it's easier to peel or wipe the color off. So now with this one, I only want this smaller butterfly. And see how if I was to come in like this, I'd end up overlapping into here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my mask down on this butterfly, stick it down, and then I'm coming in with a couple of larger of my scrap pieces. And I'm just going to cover up that opening where the larger butterfly is. And I'm just going to tape that down in a couple of places just to hold it still. So when I flip this over, all I've got is the butterfly that I want. I just need to line this up now, and I apologize if I got my hair in the frame while I line this up. I'm lining up so that I've got an equal amount of my blushing bride on each side. So I'm going to come back over with Calypso Coral, and I'm just going to put a couple of pieces of washi tape down just to hold this in place while I'm blending. With this stencil, it's got pieces in the middle. This one's kind of an open stencil. This one has pieces in the middle and they move around. So when you're using your brushes, you kind of want to move with it, not against it, because you don't want to lift the color up or lift the stencil up, because otherwise your color will kind of bleed through on the bottom. So I'm just going to come in kind of from the middle all the way out to the edges just to add that color in. Now up top, it's not such a big deal. They are pretty fixed. It's just these ones on the bottom. So I'm just adding color in. And like I say, different variations. Like if we're blending regularly, just on an open piece of paper, we don't necessarily want those kind of harsh dark pieces, but it doesn't really matter so much on this because, as I said, a little bit of color variation is not a bad thing. Okay, so I've added in the Calypso Coral. I am going to come back in again with that basic gray as soon as I find what I've done with it. There it is. And I'm just going to come around the edges ever so slightly, just kind of in here. And now I've actually put my hand on the stencil, so I'm gonna have to make sure I clean my hands. Now that's come in again. I said it was really juicy. It's kind of come in into the leaves or into the wings at the bottom. So again, not a huge deal. Just it depends what you want your overall outcome to be. This is a sample one that I did using the Blushing Bride and then the basic gray over top. But it didn't really if I'd have used a more orangey color underneath with the basic gray, I think that would have been better because it would have been more like a monarch butterfly. Okay, so let's take this and we can actually just peel this right out from underneath because I didn't stick it down. But we are going to come in and we're just going to clean off our mask, our stencil a little bit. And I can just put all of that off to the side for now. So there is our butterfly. You can see it's a little bit different from the one that I did as my demo. And that's because I used a much stronger, you can see here, this is my original one. I was actually sweeping off some of the Calypso Coral. So it's much more subtle on here than it is on here. So what do we need to do now? We need to take, I thought that this just looked a little kind of plain as it was. So I pulled out my Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, which is one of my go-tos. If I just want a bit of subtle pattern in the background, I use the Tasteful Textile folder. So I need to take all the other plates except plate number 1 out, run this through my cut and emboss machine, and then we can build the card essentially. That's what we need to do. The stencils do take a little bit of time, but the effect is really, really, really cute. So I need my card base and my mat. So all of this just kind of gets flat mounted on. So I'm going to take my card front, attach it to the Blushing Bride mat. And again, this card front is cut to 5 3 3/4. And my Blushing Bride mat is cut to 5 1/4 by 4. And I've just got a standard North American card base. Make sure it's opening the right way, and it is. And I can just put this down on here like this. And then I dimensionalized the, for someone who is wonderful in each and every way, that came from the Special Moments set, which is a celebration set, and it's got some really great greetings on it. I think even after Celebration is done, this is going to be one of my kind of go-to sentiment sets. It's going to be sitting there right next to Best Year, which has some great sentiments in it as well. Okay, so now we can place this. I had to place this one just a little bit lower because my butterfly was lower. So I can place this just that little bit higher on this one. And I used some of the polished dots on here. You can bling it up. You don't have to bling it. I'm just going to put a few of the smaller size polished dots on here just to kind of just complete the picture a little bit. And I can just pop them down wherever I think we need one. I did all 3 up top on the other card, but I think I might just pop one of these down here like that. And that is a card using the Butterflies and Flowers stencils with a little bit of a lesson on how to mask them so you don't get other stencils coming through underneath. Thank you so much for watching, and let's create together again soon.